So we're looking at 3 ED sentences today, and we've written down our definition for 3 ED sentences. So we know that within that sentence there needs to be 3 related adjectives, okay, that all end in ED. Now we've got our example sentence here before we start the modelling process, and we just said that actually the first adjective that we are identifying is frightened. It ends in ED, and as a part of our self-assessment we've ticked it off and we've just labelled it adjective. So we know that that's adjective number 1. We've also identified terrified as the second adjective, and we've done the same thing again. We've ticked and we've put adjective. Where's my third adjective, please, in that sentence that ends in ED? Riley?
Exhausted.
Exhausted, good boy. Thank you. So that's my third adjective. Okay, please pay close attention to the final comment here. And I'd like you to underline that, because it's really important that in your 3 ED sentences that you separate those adjectives with a comma each time. Does that make sense? Even your third adjective needs to finish with a comma. So we've got frightened, terrified, exhausted, the princess ran from home. I wonder now who could give me an example linked specifically to our genre of writing this week. So we're doing a diary entry from the viewpoint of Charlie. We're thinking about the moments that are leading up to his execution. Is there anybody that would feel confident to come up with 3 adjectives that end in ED that I could use to perhaps describe the way that Charlie might be feeling in the run-up to that execution? Any words at all? First off, if you can't think of the sentence initially, think of the words that might create these 3 adjectives and the list. What words? Let's come up with a little bit of a word bank. Sophie, how might you be feeling?
Overwhelmed.
Good. So overwhelmed, I could use that one. It ends in ED. Perfect. Any other words or adjectives? Everyone's hand in this room should be able to give me some adjectives that end in ED. Archie. Sickened. Perfect. It's got to end in that ED, hasn't it? And if you're not sure, you can come up with the root word first and then see if you can work it in with the ED suffix at the end. Anything else? Both of those have got ED endings. Any other adjectives, Kate? Good. Thesaurus. Petrified. Fantastic. It ends in ED. Any other words? Oscar? Saddened. And remember, these words, they might end in ED, but they've also got to be relative to the sentence. So they've got to link to the theme of your sentence. So, I'm now going to ask you to help me to build a sentence. And we're going to do it from the viewpoint of Charlie. Who wants to start me off? So I need 3 adjectives. I've got a bit of a bank there. I can always add to that later, especially now that Josh is looking in a thesaurus. How am I going to build my sentence? Imi?
Petrified, saddened, and sickened.
Okay, just hang fire a second. So I'm going to start with petrified. What was the next one, Amy? What do I need after petrified? Comma. Sickened.
No, it's 46.
What comes after sickened? Comma.
Good boys.
Saddened.
60. Okay, next one.
What's going to come after saddened?
Good boy.
Comma.
Next one.
So I'm just going to stop. I'm going to pause. I'm going to check that my sentence is on the right track. So 3 related adjectives which end in ED. I'm stopping at that point. I've got an adjective. I'm taking it off. It ends in ED. I've got a second adjective. I'm taking it off. It ends in ED. I've got my third adjective. I'm taking it off because it ends in ED. Who can finish that sentence off for me now? It's from the viewpoint of Charlie. So petrified, sickened, saddened. Sophie?
I trudged slowly through the battlefield.
Excellent. I trudged slowly, adverb of manner, through the battlefields. Perfect, well done. So at this point now, give me a thumbs up if you understand the content of those 3 ED sentences. Josh?
Upgrade saddened.
Excellent, good boy. So you're saying, Josh, that at this point now, we're not going to accept that as our final sentence, are we? So we're now going to try to up-level it. So let's go through what we did yesterday. Which words there stand out? So which are the ones that you think, they're okay, but I could do a better job? Remember the rule though, because of the nature of this sentence, they've got to end in ED. Oscar, which ones stand out for you?
Slowly.
Slowly, okay. So they're not necessarily the ED ones that are standing out. So I'm going to use orange actually. So slowly, instead of slowly, what could we say? Slowly is an adverb of manner. It's describing how that action is taking place. So it's describing how he trudged through the battlefield. So instead of slowly, so
Cautiously.
cautiously, okay. I'm going to put that in orange because that's an option. Cautiously. Anything else instead of slowly? It doesn't just have to be slowly, it could be a different adverb of manner. Hands up if you want to ask something. Oscar?
Shamelessly.
Ooh, I like it. Shamelessly. Daniel?
Wearily.
Lovely. These are so much better. Any others? Oliver? Nervously. Anxiously, because he's trudging to his execution. Excellent. Any other words there that jump out? Josh, what did you want to add?
Sickened. You could put panic sickened for a hyphen. Would that still work for an ED?
Panic sickened.
Would that still work for an ED?
It could do, yeah, as long as it ends in ED. So there you have 2 words that you're joining together for combined means you have to make sure there's a hyphen in between. So what I want you to do today now, I'd like you, in your book, once you have got the definition, once you've got that model example sentence, I then want you to create me 5 ED sentences from the viewpoint of Charlie. Does that make sense? So I want 5. I don't want them to be random, I want them to be linked to the diary entry that you will be writing at the end of the week, okay? So they need to have some relevance and purpose. So it's no good them being random. Think, how can I build these sentences today to put them into my genre of writing? So it might be that you're doing it along the lines of how he's feeling. You might want to do a 3 ED sentence that talks about perhaps his cell and where he is. You might want to do a 3 ED sentence to describe the battlefield at the moment that he's been taken to his execution. Okay? But think about the pronouns that will be in that sentence as well because it's from his viewpoint. So it's still going to be I. Does that make sense? A bit of an extension. After you've done that, see if you can play around with the structure of that sentence. So at the moment, our 3 ED adjectives come at the start of that sentence, don't they? If you were going to experiment and play around with the sentence syntax in that sentence, what could you try to do? What could you try to do? So,
Could you do I trudged slowly through the battlefield, petrified, sickened, sad?
excellent. So actually, if we're being really clever, I might try and change the structure and presentation of that sentence. That's called the sentence syntax. So instead, I trudged slowly through the battlefield. Now, I don't think a comma would be that appropriate here, okay? So what could I put there instead? Because a comma isn't going to be that appropriate there, is it? Because we're always introducing the adjectives as to the way he's feeling. Riley?
Semicolon.
You could put a semicolon. What else could you put there? Kate? Colon. What else?
Oh,
Go on, say.
could you put a dash?
I'm thinking dash. So I trudge slowly through the battlefield, dash, petrified, sickened, and if I wanted to, I could include an and now, sickened and saddened, or I could just put petrified, sickened, saddened. And that would still be enough. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah.
So actually, from that one example, I've now got two examples. All I've done is change the arrangement of that sentence. So that's what I want you to experiment with today. The other thing I will say, really important today, make sure you leave enough space in between each sentence. What do you think I want you to do? Hands up. What do you think I want you to do? Kate. Edit. So I would suggest you go back to your definition and you make sure that each sentence has got the 3 adjectives ticked off, but more importantly as well, you've got your commas in the correct places. Does that make sense to everybody? Thumbs up if you are with me. Excellent. So I'm going to give you now 15 minutes. That gives you about 3 minutes per sentence because I want 5. Okay? And then we're going to feed back and we're going to see what examples we came up with. But the focus again today is also don't just accept it at face value the first time you've got your sentence, up level it. Okay? Off you go, guys. Thanks, Belle.